What is the thing that is your message?
No one's coming to save you. Change has to happen within. I'm always showing up every day thinking to myself, how can I create a lasting impact in these people's lives, right? Not how can I increase my LTV? Not how can I make more money?
But if I challenge you on it some more,
Yeah,
not everyone can achieve those results. So if by talking about those stories and waving that flag and sharing those testimonials, how are all these other students going to get the same results at BK University?
Well, they're not, and I think that's the thing. I think that it's being honest about that. Not everyone is going to get the same results.
Today's guest is someone that wants to impact over 1 million lives by 2030. He's already making over $2 million a month, but now has a vision to do even more with his BK University.
I've never been motivated by people who are like, I'm going to show you. That's just never been me. The thing that drives me the most is other people who show up for me.
Are you the guy who's just going to run ads and make even more offers, or do you become more conscious in how you earn money? You can still grow an amazingly big business consciously. If you think of people who have like PhDs and degrees, they don't tend to be entrepreneurs because they calculate things differently. You have to have a bit of stupidity about you to take those risks.
You've got to be delusional. Leadership is
Welcome to the Lead to Win podcast. Today's guest is someone that wants to impact over 1 million lives by 2030. He's already making over $2 million a month, but now has a vision to do even more with his BK University. I welcome today's guest, Bashar. Will you hit 3, 4, 5 million like because I know you, it's more of a university angle.
Yeah.
Do you still have the aspiration to move into other verticals, because you're doing mainly Amazon? Do you still want to bring in coaches from other sides and make it more of a university?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, that's the vision for the company. In fact, Q3 now, we're actually developing, researching new verticals to launch in Q4 or maybe Q1 of next year. And it's not, I think there is Masterclass that like does something similar, but they target like higher level people that are in their, let's say they have someone like Gordon Ramsay doing cooking classes and stuff like that. For us, it's not that necessarily, like we're not going to be targeting the influence of the influencer as much as the skill of the person that has that skill, right? So it could be someone that's a nobody, that nobody knows them, but they're really good at trading Forex or something like that, right? So we would absorb that person inside of our university and then offer their skill to our audience, right? But the goal over the next 3 years is to have about a dozen different skills that people can acquire to make money online. So this could be like real estate, or it could be crypto trading, could be stock trading, or e-commerce, or whatever it is. You know what I mean? So that's kind of the vision for the company, you know?
Well, if you were going to do it in that way, you can also go down the route of advertising different offers, because you could have your Amazon specific offer, or however you angle it in terms of the amount of revenue that you would grow and the amount of money you would make.
Yeah.
But you could also make it about, have you been curious about becoming more productive and having something around that?
Sure.
So like you can make it down different verticals, and then your brand will just...
We definitely can. So the vision of the company now, and not the vision as much as the job of the company now, is more awareness, like brand building and awareness creation versus advertising and generating leads. Because we are more focused on like recruiting distributors and building the network.
Yeah.
And through the network, they're going to advertise our skills, and they're going to bring people through that, you know? And one of the biggest reasons why we moved towards this way, because we started realizing that, well, first of all, no one had scaled an education company to the level that we want to scale it, doing the traditional ads and that kind of stuff, and funnels and all that. And then the second thing was, we started realizing that there was a lot of lack of trust in the industry. A lot of people were lacking trust because of bad actors over the last 3-4 years. A lot of people wanted to, the sales cycle was getting longer, how much people were willing to invest was getting smaller, the LTV was getting smaller, the cost per acquisition was getting higher, and we realized that we need to somehow, close that gap, but build trust faster. And so that's why we moved into kind of like the network marketing type of model. So now, through the network marketing, the distribution network, they're the ones that advertise the different skills. And then for us as the company, our job is to really create more focused on brand building versus like, this is what we teach, come learn from us type of thing. You know what I mean?
Well, you would only ever do that because you had a big vision. Because if someone has a vision to make $3 million a year, they would do bottom of funnel, very direct response.
Yes.
But the bigger the vision grows, like Coca-Cola do brand awareness, which is billboard ads.
Yes.
It's not measurable, the return, but they're just trying to grow the brand.
Yes.
Do you know about the story of the CMO of New Balance and how they re-changed the company? So New Balance, as you know now, it's a cool brand. Before it was a dad shoe, it was boring, no one would want to wear it.
Okay.
And the CMO came in 3 or 4 years ago and moved the budget from 70% bottom of funnel to 70% top of funnel, new celebrity endorsements, new sponsorships, rappers, singers. And then as they moved the budget up to awareness and sponsorships, the brand took 18 months of loss of sales only to then become cool. And then where you allocate budget depending on awareness to bottom of funnel, and I know this because I worked for a company that was doing 60 million in revenue, and they would move their branding from bottom of funnel to awareness. And the awareness and sales, it was awful for me as a sales director because it hurt my P&L in the sales side. But then after 12 months of the sales, everyone knowing more about the brand, about them seeing it differently, about it being positioned differently, now they saw it as that gym membership is cool.
Yes.
So like the bigger the vision, the more you would spend time in awareness.
Yes. Yeah, 100%. And the other thing is, I like the analogy of like bottom funnel versus top funnel, because I also think bottom funnel is a lot more like short-term focused and like, let me convert as many people today, and almost like burning the boats and kind of like transactional versus like relationship building. I did it was funny you say that, because I did a talk to a Tai Lopez community a few days ago. And one of the things that I was talking about is like being focused on the long term versus the short term, because when you're focused on the short term, it's like, how can I make a lot more money today? And unfortunately, a lot of people in this industry, in the online coaching industry, are focused on how much can I make today, and like day one cash and day one ROI. And I think that's why the entire industry in a whole has just gotten a bad rep, and why the trust has become so, like, the trust is at all-time low because of that. You know, because everyone is like trying to extract as much as possible from their prospects today, you know?
Yeah, I didn't know we are going to go so deep in marketing theory, but
for sure.
I do love it. Well, if you look at Eugene Short's Breakthrough Advertising, he talks about how there's a cycle of trust being broken, and then because of all the offers and scarcity being created and urgency being created, and then it actually destroys the industry, then it recycles back. So every industry, when it's a small industry like online marketing, which is, let's say, it's going to have a 5-6 year cycle, it would go through a phase of everyone finds it new, interesting, like lockdown. This is something that I want to invest in, to so many offers, so much scarcity, so much trust being lost, and then it resetting. And the bigger the industry, the longer that cycle takes. So bigger industries, like let's say it was a corporate industry, that cycle might take 100 years before it's like, I don't trust that anymore. So like in marketing theory, you have this, and it's like a part of just a system that works.
Interesting. I never thought about it that way. Well, you know, I recently read, about a year and a half ago, I read Patrick Bet-David's book, Choose Your Enemies Wisely. And in that, he talks about how we need to continuously recreate ourselves in order for us to stand out, in order for us to kind of go to the next level. And oftentimes what happens is, at least from my personal experience, is I normally recreate myself when I hit rock bottom and when my back's against the wall, and that's usually when shit has hit the fan. And so, and kind of like compared to what you're talking about, it's like, how can one recreate themselves before that cycle actually takes place? Because if and when the cycle takes place, it's like probably a lot of the players have been wiped out because it's gotten so hard to convert and generate revenue and stuff like that. And so it's like, how can you get ahead of the curve, and how can you stand out to where you're ahead of the cycle instead of allowing the cycle to either wipe you out or force you to recreate yourself, you know?
That's amazing. You know, I was actually quite resistant to read that book because I thought picking an enemy felt like, I used to think, I don't have an enemy. I don't hate anyone.
Yes.
But then after reading that book, an enemy isn't a person.
Yes.
It can be an emotion. It can be anything.
Yes.
Did you have an enemy that you found?
So for me, it was a person. Yeah, for me, it was a person. It was a few people actually that have walked out on me, that have quit on me, and kind of stopped believing in me and in my vision and stuff like that. And so for a little while, for about a good year, it was a driver. And then I don't know what happened. I think I don't know, man. I resonated, that concept resonated with me for a little while, and then it didn't, you know? And the reason being is, It's like there is that picture. We've all seen it on Instagram where you have two swimmers, and then one swimmer's like focusing ahead, and he's the one ahead, and then there's the other one that's like looking at the next guy next to him, and then he's the one behind, right? And every time I've tried comparing myself to others or look at others, whether for motivation, whether for inspiration, aspiration, whether for like envy or just focusing on where they are in their journey and comparing myself or whatever, I've always not done well. You know, I still remember this was like 2019, 2020. There was the specific guy that I was in the same industry I was, you know, trying to make it in. And he was just growing followers, growing revenue, growing. And I remember I had his paid community. I had access to it. And then every day I would go in and there's like 5, 6 people, 7, 8 people. And it's like, the guy had like a 5 and a 10 and a $25,000 program. And I'm just like counting. I'm like, oh my God, how much is this guy making, you know? And I'm like barely, you know, doing anything, you know? And then his followers just growing. And I was just like, I got obsessed with trying to chase after him pretty much. And that's what it became. It became a chase. And then I pretty much gave up. I gave up at trying to compete because he was just going so fast that I'm like, dude, I just can't. And in that moment of giving up, I just realized, you know, just fuck it. I'm just going to focus on me. A year and a half go by. I open my Instagram and I see a DM from him living in my inbox for 2.5 months. He had DM me in a message request, reaching out, trying to hang out. I was like, that's interesting. So I hung out with him. And I realized that our company had surpassed his company by 2.5x. Yeah. Right? And that happened within, you know, less than 2 years. And then the same thing happened when I read Choosing Your Enemies Wisely. You know, there was like a couple of people that I was like, I'm going to show you, I'm going to show you, I'm going to show you. And then I focused on that for a little while until it became like, I don't know, it became achy, I guess. It just didn't feel right. I've just never been motivated by external, I've never been motivated by people who are ahead of me. I've never been motivated by people who are like, I'm going to show you, you know. I've never been motivated by that. I know some people who have, like I know Patrick has, you know, I think he talks about like teachers or, you know, like an uncle that made fun of his dad or something like that at a party, right? That's just never been me. The thing that drives me the most is other people who show up for me, right? So for example, I was talking to my wife earlier today and actually my therapist earlier this morning. And, you know, we just relaunched our business and stuff like that. And you know, my therapist was asking me, how is the new business, you know, how is the new model? It's only been 120 days. And I'm like, you know, we technically had to start from zero because whatever we were doing, we stopped it and we relaunched this thing. She's like, so how is it going? I'm like, well, it has to work. She's like, how's it going? I'm like, it's busy, busier than ever. I'm in meetings like 50. I've got 57 this week. I've got 59 meetings. Last week I had 63 meetings. You know, and it's just like back to back. Some are 30 minutes, some are 2 hours. And I'm like, you know, it just has to work. Like there is no other option. I will make it work some way or another. I don't know how. I will make it work. And I'm like, because you know, right now we've got over 220 people involved in this thing, and it's only been 120 days. And I'm like, it's not even for me. You know, I'm not even worried about me. Like, I'll be just fine. If this doesn't work, if the business goes out of business, like, I don't care. You know, I've got enough money, I've got enough investments, I'll be fine. I've had to rebuild from zero twice, and I've always made fine, you know, been well. But it's about all these people that are now invested in me, invested in my vision, invested in the mission of the company. Like, I have to show up for them. So I've always found that being a much stronger driver for me to show up than like other external things. Does that make sense?
It makes sense. It makes complete sense because you know a lot about capitalism and then you have conscious capitalism.
Yes.
And conscious capitalism is where you are doing things, but you also think about empathy and compassion for others. And like your business is driven to make money. You of course want to make 100 million.
Yes.
But then you're thinking about the impact and how it affects others. And this is the route that many go down because when you go from scarcity mindset to having no money and you know this, you shouldn't follow your passion. You should follow what's going to make you money first.
Yes.
You do this and you become a capitalist, and then down the road you get choices, and then your character gets tested. Are you the guy who's just going to run ads and make even more offers, or do you become more conscious in how you earn money?
Yes.
And what you tend to find is you can still grow an amazingly big business consciously, which is what you're doing.
I've just found it more fulfilling. You know, and I agree with you about the, you know, not chasing your passion. You know, people always say, I used to hear, I love Gary Vee, but I also hate him for whenever he says, chase your passion, you know. If you find your passion, you'll never work a day in your life. I'm like, dude, if your back's against the wall, you know, you've got debt collectors calling you every day, like, you are in a scarce mindset, and in that mindset, you can't find your passion. Now, if you woke up at at the age of 3 and you're dribbling a soccer ball, that's a different story, right? Like, go chase after that. But it's like the rest of us, like, for me, I think passion is, if I can make money and help people, I can be passionate about it. And every business that I've founded that succeeded followed this very simple, kind of concept. I can make money from it and take care of my family, and I can help people. I can be passionate about it, right? Now, 10 years in, you've got a few $1 million in the bank and you're doing fine. And then if you find a passion thing, great, right? But in the beginning, I don't think passion is a thing. At least not for me. At least that hasn't worked for me. And my way isn't always the best, but that's just kind of what's worked for me. You know what I mean?
Funny story about Gary Vee. I went to his London offices. I was invited to meet him for an event. And at the time, every year he's like, are you posting on TikTok? And sometimes, are you posting on Facebook? Every year it changes platform. Whichever corporate he's aligned with, he'll tell them to post there. And then because he kind of influences where these bigger corporates are now posting. And I thought, is he going to tell me as soon as I ask him a question, am I posting on this platform? Is he going to do that? And I said to him, hey, Gary, my goal is to make our 10 million revenue. This is what we're trying to do. And he went, are you posting on LinkedIn? and the thing is, it's really impactful. Even though he repeats the same message, I realized marketing is just about amplifying your message. And if all you do is repeat the same thing over and over again, people will eventually listen.
They will.
So his message is about, are you posting content? And I was like, I've seen on a lot of your videos, it's like, did you know? Like, you start with a similar line, or you start with a similar angle. Like, what is the bigger message? Like, because you have immigrant parents that came over. You've had restaurants, been an Uber driver, been a dishwasher, done all these things, and your restaurant even burnt down. And like, now you have a sense of resilience, which I think that you said that's what measures an entrepreneur. But what is the thing that is your message?
I mean, there's a lot. I think the biggest thing is no one's coming to save you, and change has to happen within, has to come from within. For the longest time, I tried to change people who were around me because I thought that they have a lot more potential and that they could do so much more. And to me, I felt like they were wasting all this potential. And so I was trying to change people. I was trying to make them realize that there's so much more they could be doing. And then I realized that, although in my mind, this new version here is the perfect version for that person, but in their mind, the version they're on is the best version for them. So it's like, who am I to try to force something on them? And I realized that no matter what I try to do, I can't change people. But what I can do is I can be the change that aspires them or that inspires them, right? So it's like, don't try to change those that are around you. Instead, be the change that inspires action maybe inside of them, and maybe that it doesn't, right? That's the first thing. But the second thing, I get asked, this all the time. Bashar, I'm making X per month, and I want to make X plus Y per month. I've been struggling, and I've been trying to do this for the longest time, but I just can't seem to get there. And I always ask, think about the last 30 days. Who were the 3 to 5 people you hung out with? Write their names down. Okay, great. Now write down next to their names how much they make per month. Okay, great. Now ask yourself, how much do I make per month? Compare that to how much they make per month. About 80% of the time, it's about the same. Okay? Now ask yourself, and sometimes you're even making more than them, right? Now ask the other question, are they aspiring to get to where you want to go? The answer usually is no. Well, here's your answer. Grant Cardone says, show me your friends, I'll show you your future, right? And it's the same thing. Your results are the average results of the 5 people you hang out with. And so if you want to, change your results, if you want to improve, if you want to become a better person, you got to change your environment. Because I woke up in 2020 and saw my business stuck at one level for a whole year. And I realized I was hanging out with my in-laws once a week, hanging out with my parents once a week, hanging out with my best friends once a week, and then maybe spending 3-4 days working on my business. And even then, I was just distracted everywhere. And then everyone around me was like, I had made it in all sense of business. And everyone else's made it to me was like, I'm disgusted with this. Like, I can't believe this is making it, right? And it wasn't until I moved from California, came here to Miami, and it wasn't even the environment, it was just removing myself from that made it mentality kind of environment that I forced myself to just focus on my business, and then we grew our business by 27x. So it's the environment, you know. If you want to improve, you got to change your environment, because that's really what's going to help you go to the next level in your life.
It's definitely a leadership mindset.
Yes.
I think in your business you went from like 150, 200,000 in 11 months all the way to over like 2 million.
Yeah, 2.3 million.
That was one of your years that you kind of had that exponential growth. I kind of call it the blur phase, when you just have growth so fast you don't really know what's going on.
Exactly.
And like I've also heard you say how 80% of times your assumptions are incorrect.
Correct.
So I just wanted you to talk about that, because we all make assumptions all the time naturally, but someone who learns not to make assumptions is usually a curious person, is usually an optimist, is usually, let's say, entrepreneurial mindset. Like, how did you conquer that bit, which is I should stop making assumptions?
Well, I always say that the reason why you're not where you want to go is because you're lacking information. And it's usually not more information, but it's new information. Because oftentimes what got you here isn't going to get you there. And so you need to get rid of whatever information you had that got you here, so that way you can acquire new information that's going to get to the next level. And so I've got this little sticky note that's next to my desk that says, keep a beginner's mind. Always keep a beginner's mind. Because I remember a couple times in my life where I thought I made it. I went from being the mentee to the mentor, right? And I was the one that, in every dinner, I was making the most, and I was, praised everywhere I went and stuff like that. And then, it's hard to not let that get to you, right? It's hard to not let that get to your head. You're driving a nice car, you're living a nice, you're spending hundreds of dollars for dinner, you're going nice places. Everywhere you go, people are telling you, oh my God, you're so good, and all that stuff. And it takes a lot of humility and a lot of willpower to not allow that get to your ego, because we all have ego, and so in that, I learned that if I don't keep a beginner's mind, I will always fall right after I go from the mentee to the mentor, the mentee to the mentor mindset. And it's happened several times in my life. It was literally, I go from here to here, and then a decline happens. I go from here to here, and a decline happens right after. And so I would say that would be the biggest thing, is staying humble and always keeping a beginner's mind. Because the thing is, if you continue to learn, you will continue evolving and realizing flaws about yourself that maybe now you're not aware of, right? But if you stop learning, if you stop evolving, if you stop, connecting with people, and if you start, stop getting to know people, then whatever information you have is going to be the only pool of information you're going to pull from. And that's good, because it got you here, but it's not going to get you to the next level. And you're going to start having a lot of blind spots. And the minute you have blind spots, you're just going to start, having things fall in front of you, and then you're going to start fumbling and falling. And then before you know it, you wake up and you're at ground zero, and now you got to build back up.
I love it. And you mentioned how ego, it could be like your superpower, or it can hold you back. Let's say it was Eastern philosophy. Ego is bad. In Western philosophy, they can say ego can be good.
Sure.
And is ego, it can be defined as like self-worth or self-esteem. Like, is ego useful to you, or do you see it as a negative?
I think we all need a little bit of ego, but too much can be hurtful. And I say that because I've had the pendulum swung both ways. When I was younger, so at the age of 23, one of the reasons why my restaurant burned down was because I had too big of an ego. And some people will say, well, what does that have anything to do with the restaurant burning down? Well, because my ego was so large that I thought to myself that I know everything at 23, no experience, no business experience. I know it all. No one can teach me what to do. I don't need anyone's help. And I went and I renovated a place, and that's how it burned down. We switched the concept from American to pizzeria. We brought in a bunch of old equipment. We brought in someone that wasn't licensed to set up gas pipes. And when they were setting it up, they punctured a hole in the gas pipe. And then before you know it, about a few weeks later, the thing catches on fire, and then the place catches, the entire thing goes in flames. And that's because I had too big of an ego to even allow someone to tell me, dude, this guy doesn't know what he's doing. Although he's charging, 30%, 40% less, it doesn't mean that it's a better job. Obviously you get what you pay for. but my ego was so big that no one could tell me what to do, right? And then the reason why I hired someone that was cheaper was because my ego was too big. I didn't allow someone to tell me what to do, and the restaurant was struggling, so I didn't have the money to pay a professional, right? Now, since then, I also had to swing the other way, which was no ego, and I've had people walk all over me. I've become I had become the people pleaser, and I would go the extra mile and bend, backwards to please people and keep people around, and that's not good either. But I think a controlled degree of ego is really important. So this way you have your self-worth, you have your self-respect, but at the same time, it's not so big where you just become deaf and you become blind and you don't allow anyone kind of help you. You know what I mean?
Really nice. And what I'm recognizing is that you could have the right amount of ego, but then it's also with something that's more environmental savviness, which is defined by, which is just like a term I just made up, which I think about you had a business in a daycare center where you kind of like rented space.
Right.
And like, think about everything that you've always had as savviness. So even in your 20s, you were savvy. Even in your 30s now, you're savvy. And you're just applying it in a faster vehicle. How do people learn to be savvy? Because some people would say, I'm savvy because I have an immigrant mindset. Or like, you just find a way. You think, initially for me, it was, can I find a shortcut to do it? And then you eventually learn there's no shortcuts. But that mindset actually is good for you because you're always just savvy, looking for different ways to do things.
Yep.
So how does someone learn to be more savvy? Like, because you've got that skill.
Well, Warren Buffett says a smart man learns from his mistakes, a wise man learns from other mistakes. For me, I've had to make the same mistakes twice for me to even learn from them, right? I've had coaches tell me don't do something, and I'm like, oh yeah, that makes sense, and I go do it, and then I fail, and then I go do it again, and I fail, and now I'm like, oh, okay, that's why they said don't do it, So obviously, learning from someone who's done what you're trying to do, I think that's the shortcut to success. But at the end of the day, you've got to experience, And so the thing is, like, how can I experience a lot more faster? Which is starting younger, but that's not to discourage those that are older. Starting now, right? Because the other thing is like, okay, you can either start younger, but if you're not young and you're in your 30s or 40s or 50s, it's like, okay, well, let's start now. Let's not like wait 7, 8, 12, 24, 36 months. Let's start now. And so it's just doing more faster, failing forward, getting up, going again. And I think it was Alex Hormozi who said it. He said, the successful people aren't smarter than you. They just have bigger failed resumes, right? So if they're just like, they've failed a lot more than you and they've got up and got going. I've launched 9 businesses. The first 7 failed, right? Like failed miserably, One of them gave me into $150,000 in debt. So it's like, just do more faster, fail forward, get up, dust off, go again, That's
incredible.
Yeah.
And it is, when you think about failing, you said you had to start over recently. You're saying you're just starting over with this new business now.
Yes.
You don't start over because every time you have the lessons from the previous one.
Exactly.
So you start over, but like it's these lessons that you're carrying over.
Yes.
And I think this is why, like going into this conversation, I actually thought it was going to be more tactical. Or you make $2 million a month, and what did you do and how did you do this? This was my assumption.
Sure.
But then what I've learned is the more money someone makes, the more introspective they are, in my experience.
Yes.
So every time I've met someone who's making, let's say, a vast amount of money, and I would consider that more than 10 million.
Sure.
Or somebody else's vast would be more than 100 million or a billion. They become more introspective because they know themselves better.
Yes.
And they know their limitations and what they can and can't do. And I think, would you say your growth of the money that you've made has been directly correlated to how much more introspective or how much more self-discovery you've done?
Absolutely, 100%. Because Tony Robbins says success is 80% mindset and 20% skill. And when we first start, we always focused on the skill. It's like we go to school, we get a degree. What does it do? It doesn't teach us about mindset, it teaches us about skill. But that's why those that have degrees, it's like they are capped. Because all they've done all their life is sharpen their skill sword, but they have not sharpened their mindset sword, right? And those that make it at the highest levels are able to sharpen their mindset sword. In fact, focus a lot more on that than anything else, right? Like when I look at the education that I've had over the last 3-4 years, it's been probably about 70-80% mindset related. You know, it's been very little to do with skills. When it comes to skills, it's like I'll hire someone for an hour or two to teach us how to convert this funnel better, whatever, how to build this webinar and have it convert at 20% instead of 15%. But that's it. But then the longer term education is mindset related. You know, I've got a therapist that I've been working with for the last 3.5 years, and I meet with her once a week, every week, and virtual, and then 2 days a quarter in person, and we go into just a full 2-day, completely unplugged, offline, just, you know, full intensives, you know, tapping in, all that stuff. And then every other education that I do, the books that I read, the podcasts that I listen to, the education that I do, it's all about mindset. And what that does is it allows you to uncover certain limiting beliefs that you have, because I don't remember who said it. And this is gonna take a couple times for me to say it, because the way that I see it, I think I need to say it better. But someone said, those that are succeeding at the highest levels, it's not because they have something you don't have. It's because they don't have something you have. And it's usually limiting beliefs.
Yes.
They don't have stuff you have, which are limiting beliefs, right? And so that's essentially what it is. Like, the more I study people, it's like, dude, it's just, all it is thought process. All it is how they think, how they process issues, how they, you know, what they do with their demons. We all have demons. You know, I woke up this morning having doubts and having fears about certain things, you know, this podcast, for example. But the successful are able to recognize the demons and say, okay, well, I still got a full schedule. You know, it's like, I'm still going to show up. Those that are not succeeding at the highest levels recognize the demons, and then they go in.
Yeah.
They go into a rabbit hole they can't pull themselves out, right? And then also, the difference between those that have and those that don't have, I believe, is how fast you can get back up out of a rut, right? When you feel like shit, when you wake up in the morning and you don't feel like going to the gym, or you don't feel like going up, or you don't feel like doing this, or you don't feel like doing that, it's like, how fast can you get back on the horse? It's going to determine how successful you get in life, you know?
Yeah, and if you read the book Power versus Force by David Hawkins, you talk about courage, and what you're describing is courage.
Yes.
Like how, like, people don't use this word courage often anymore. It's not used. Like, if you were following Bushido code, Japanese culture, they use the word courage and honor. But then in modern day, we don't use this word anymore. And what you're describing is like doing things that you don't want to do. It involves courage.
Well, I think I saw a definition one time for courage. Courage is, it was something along the lines of, courage is when you feel fearful but do it anyways.
Yeah.
It's not, you know, when they say people are courageous, it's not because they don't fear stuff. No, it's everyone has fears, but they do it anyways, right? Like I was watching, I watched Tom Cruise the other day, Mission Impossible, his last one, I believe it is.
I don't think it is.
And man,
I don't think it's his last one. I don't think he's ever stopping.
Yeah, exactly. And like you see the scenes, and it's like he's jumping off planes, and you know his freaking parachute is burning, and it's like, dude, it's him actually doing it. Like, there's no double. This is not UGC. This is like him actually jumping off a plane, and his parachute is actually on fire. Like, what the fuck, you know? And then I'm thinking to myself, like, so when he's standing on the helicopter, I know he's probably done these like hundreds of times. Are you trying to tell me that there isn't an ounce of fear in his body? I am 100% the guy's fearful. But guess what? He shows up every time and does it anyways. Or like the one right before this, I don't know, was the final, not the final reckoning, was the first one. I can't remember what was called. He's got the scene where he jumps off the hill or the mountain or whatever, and then his motorbike just like flies into the thing, and then he jumps off and then he lands in a parachute. It's like, I think they said to practice that he had to do it like 65 times or something. And it's like, my God.
Yeah.
Are you trying to tell me when he's on that bike and he's going off and he's about to jump off, he's not thinking like, what if this parachute doesn't open? Then what? Right? Like, are you trying to tell me he's not getting these crazy thoughts? But it's about recognizing the negative thoughts and then doing it anyways. That's courage to me.
Yeah.
You know?
And I often think this is why very intelligent people don't actually succeed in business. Like people, Elon Musk might be an anonymous, like someone who's like an outlier. But if you think of people who have like PhDs and degrees, they don't tend to be entrepreneurs because they calculate things differently.
Yes.
You have to have a bit of stupidity about you to take those risks.
You've got to be delusional.
Yeah.
You've got to be like seriously, like you've got to be pretty delusional. Like for example, the thing that we're doing right now, and I'm not trying to, you know, I'm not Elon Musk. I'm not flying rockets into space. I'm not civilizing Mars or anything. But it's like the thing that we're doing right now with our business is like we're combining two industries, and it's never been done, right? And like, for example, when I started online coaching 6 years ago, I had Sam Ovens. And he had done it a million times, and he had generated tens of millions of dollars, and he had taught thousands of others. So it's like it was a duplicatable system. I downloaded everything. I downloaded his funnels. I downloaded his emails. I downloaded everything, man. I think until now, our admin and finance team is still running the same what are they called? Like AR emails that we got from Sam like 7-8 years ago. You know, it's like there's a collection notice, and there's this, and like there's a meme of Obama like cooking someone's credit card or something like that. It was like funny shit, you know? And it's like it's step-by-step system. But the thing we're doing right now, it's like we don't have someone who's done it exactly that we can go and ask questions to. So and like for 6 years, we had done things in a certain way, and we had generated 37 million doing that. And so to go and say, screw all that, we're going to now start doing it completely differently and start from zero, and I don't know if it's going to work or not, like there has to be a level of delusion and craziness and all that, you know what I mean? So like when Elon says, I'm going to civilize Mars, it's like, yeah, you've kind of got to be crazy to talk like that or say these kinds of things. Yeah. So I agree with you that like, extremely intelligent people, I mean, I don't see how they could make those decisions, you know what I mean? Because they are so calculated.
Really nice. I still use Sam Oven's warm up.
Oh, yeah.
to plan my entire year.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, I still use that.
That's awesome.
And it's been every year, just pick a new warm up.
Yeah.
So the podcast, what you've shown so far is like really good leadership, and leadership usually comes from internal and being introspective, self-discovery. I want to also focus on the sales side. Like I own a very mission-driven, big vision business around sales leadership. I also write a book around sales leadership. So I want to actually talk to you about your sales team, how your sales team functions, and how you actually tactically have grown it. Like in the months of going from a few 100,000 to 2 million, usually you can't hire as fast in 11 months, or you don't have a sales operational system that will break. So tactically, how did you, if we talk back then to your sales team now, how did you scale your sales team where the volume can grow, but also so fast in 11 months? How are you building infrastructure for a sales machine to close all those deals?
Yeah, this is going to sound woo-woo a little bit. I'm going to go woo-woo on this. It was one of the things that, I think it was the second point that I shared on at Brian's Mastermind. And it was the whole thing of like, stop trying to build lifestyle businesses, you know? I don't know. It's just me. I don't like it. I hate it when people talk about, I want to build a lifestyle business. I'm like, this just sounds selfish. If you want to build a lifestyle business, go figure out how you can leverage AI. Don't hire people, because you're what you're doing is you are obligated to now someone else's life. And when you're saying, I want to build a lifestyle business, you're just focused on you and what serves you, right? And that's just, to me, it just doesn't sound fair to everybody else. That said, I am the type of person that I want to have thousands of people working in my company. You know, I want to build a big multi-billion-dollar business. Like I am that guy, you know? I work 7 days a week. I don't like taking vacations. Like I'm just that guy, right? Now, it doesn't mean my way is the right way. That's just how I like it, you know? That said, to come back to your question, the reason why we were able to do it is because we were mission-driven from day one. The mission drove everything we did. And until now, you know, the conversation that I was telling you that I had with my therapist this morning, it was like, it has to work because it's not about me anymore. I have tens of people that like show up that believe in the mission so much that they're willing to do anything and everything, right? And it's like, what am I going to do? Show up one day and say, hey guys, you know, we gave it a go. It didn't work. I don't know. Let's go do something else. Like, I can't do that, you know? Because people believed in the mission so much, we would have sales reps where they'd get on a PIP and then things won't work out and they'd be like, sorry, man, I gotta go. They'll come back and say, don't give me calendar space. Don't even give me leads. I don't care. Can I just show up to the meetings? Can I just show up to the trainings? Can I just be with you guys? Can I just be in the Slack channels? Because of the culture. And so the thing that we focused on from day one, and I give a lot of credit to Aaron, our co-founder, his main focus was on the culture. His main thing was building the culture. Building, you know, making it, one of our core values is fun, right? We have 5 core values, one of them is fun. And so at the end of the day, I look at it as, you know, if I ever worked in a company, I want to wake up on Mondays and say, hell yeah. And then if the company's closed on Saturday, Sunday, I'd be super pissed. But on Fridays, I'd be like, damn, man, I got to wait 2 days for me to come back. I want a company that I would work at to be fun, right? I don't want to be, dragging my feet to get to work. And that's the kind of place that I want to build for other people. And so we focused on that. And when we focused on that, everything else just kind of took care of itself. Because to be honest with you, when you go from $150,000 a month to $2.3 million a month in 10 months, you skip a lot of business levels. And the business that supports, or the infrastructure that supports $1 million a year business, $1.5 million, versus a $15-20 million a year business, it's not the same.
Specifically tech, operations, CRM,
everything,
all these
everything,
things.
all these things. I mean, just operations, just processes, there was no processes, you know what I mean? And so, and because you are growing so fast, you don't even have time to take a step back and say, what are we missing here?
Yeah.
Because you're excited and you're growing and stuff like that. They don't even have time. That's why I was talking about the S-curve.
Yeah.
Right? And so that's the thing that we missed at the top. It's like, oh shit, we're still growing. It was like, no. We got to start building processes now.
You had to wait until stagnation to do it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so for us, what kept us afloat and what helped us continue growing was the focus on the culture. Was because it was mission driven. Was because people were enjoying what they were doing so much that because there was a lot of shortfalls. There was a lot of times where someone didn't get paid on time, or someone not because there was no money, it was plenty of money, but it was just forgot because there's so many wires going out. There was so many things. The bank account got blocked for 3 days because of whatever. God knows what's going on. The CR system went down because we forgot to up the credits. There's a million things happening all at once, but people were willing to put up with all the craziness because they're like, this is crazy, this is insane, this is exciting, the culture is awesome, I love everybody loves me, let's go, right? So that was the thing, is that we obsessed over the culture, we obsessed over the mission, and we really, when we talked about impacting people's lives, on meetings, it wasn't how many deals did you close, bro? How many, how much money? It was how many lives are we impacting? What can we do to really help this guy? We were sending people to Tony Robbins events. We were bringing mindset coaches to our programs to help our students, all that stuff, right? And so we focused on the end user versus how much money can we get out of them,
Yeah, really nice. And look, we have a system that we implement into businesses regarding their sales team. And the first thing is actually mission and vision. And every single time we implement our system, it's the bottom of the pyramid is actually mission, vision, core values.
Yes.
Then it's recruiting and hiring, and then it's data. So those are the foundational pieces above. That is KPIs, training, accountability, leadership.
Yep.
So in the bottom components, most people find those the boring things: systems, processes, hiring,
yes,
and mission and vision.
Yep.
But those are the things that you need, because you can't ramp someone up to a KPI or hold a meeting if none of those things are in place.
Exactly.
And I think most entrepreneurs have it the wrong way around. They think about mission and vision too late. They first think about making money, but if you think about what is the impact that I want to make, and then you can find a vision, because I do think most people don't find that until late, because it's you can't search for it, it just kind of comes to you. What is the vision?
See, here's the thing. It's difficult though.
Yeah.
If someone came to me day one and said, we need to come up with a mission and vision, I'd be like, go fuck yourself. Because let's face it, it's kind of it's almost like if someone came to me 10 years ago when I was $150,000 in debt, I was, depressed, I had just gotten a DUI because I was drinking too heavily, and told me, we need to work on your mindset, bro. We need to, release your limiting belief. I'd be like, what the fuck are you talking about? I've got credit card debt, I've got debt collectors calling me every day. I got to make money, So it's kind of the same thing with the vision mission. It's I had to discover it, Now, luckily, I discovered it fairly early in my entrepreneurial journey, and it's not even an entrepreneurial journey as much as my leadership journey, because I had been an entrepreneur for almost a decade when I found out about the mission and vision stuff, but I wasn't a leader. I was just an entrepreneur. And I think there's a difference in my, now that I'm talking about it, I'm actually realizing it. I think there's a difference between being an entrepreneur versus being a leader. I feel like an entrepreneur is almost like when I think entrepreneur, I think a single person, I'm worried about myself. I want to just kind of try to make ends meet. I'm going to do whatever it takes to make it happen, right? Where a leader, it's more of, you don't even need to be an entrepreneur for you to be a leader. You could be an intrapreneur, which is leading a division or something within a company. But you are worried about the rest of the organization. You're worried about the others that are around you. You're worried about the well-being of other people that are with you, right? And It was when I became a leader and started realizing that, oh shit, people actually rely on me now and I need to like start leading versus just like producing. That's when I like discovered mission, vision, core values. And then I realized, oh wait, this is like the foundation of all this stuff.
I love it.
Now starting a new business, that's where I would start. But now because I have the experience and I know, right? Now starting to make money, I would start with mindset. You know, if I were to create a course or teach someone, I would work on mindset versus here's a skill because I know. But I think someone starting, especially like beginner entrepreneurs, man, I think like they just have to go through it and like find out, because trying to teach them this stuff, it just won't make sense. You know, I remember I saw a clip by Will Smith, and they were telling him about like, you know, you've made it at the highest levels and you've fallen, you've got up and all that stuff. You know, how do you go from like, I'm the celebrity, I've got all this, you know, all this material stuff, and then realize, shit, this actually doesn't bring me joy, and then needing to focus on what really matters. He's like, you know, you can't teach it to people. Like if you're a celebrity, if you're coming up, all that stuff, if you're about the money, you're about the chains, you're about the travel, you're about the cars, like, go do it, bro.
I love it.
You just got to get it out of your system and then realize, oh, that's not actually the destination. It's just kind of, it's bullshit. You know what I mean?
I agree, it's bullshit. And you used, like, you were talking about the difference between an entrepreneur and a leader.
Yeah.
And I love defining words recently. So entrepreneur, I would define as a seeker of opportunities.
Yes.
And a leader, I would define as a guide to others. And that's why they are so different. And because the skills are so different. So one's a guide to others, one's a seeker of opportunity.
Yep.
And we have one of the biggest things that people come to us for is our sales manager development program. So they have a sales manager and they want to develop them into a sales director, or they want to make them into a leader. So how have you done that within the leaders within your business? Have you had a closer become a sales manager? Have you had a sales manager become a sales director? How have you kind of developed, or in a nice way groomed those people in your business to develop into those roles as you've scaled?
So first of all, I think we all make the mistake of thinking that our top producers can become managers and leaders.
Never.
That's almost never the case.
Never.
You know, just because someone has the skill of producing doesn't mean they have the skill of leading. Completely two different skills. Now, the other way around, though, because we've had people that are okay producers but become great managers and leaders, right? So performance doesn't always mean that someone can become a good leader or not. So that's something to like look out for immediately. Leadership is caught, not taught, but it is developed. Here's what I mean. I can't tell you that that you should go 4 times to the gym when I go 1 time to the gym, right? Because you're gonna do what I do, not what I say, right? And so if I want my leaders to develop other leaders and care about them and be there for them, I need to do the same thing with them and for the rest of them. That said, you can develop people into leaders, but I don't think you can develop everyone into a leader, right? So people need to show signs of wanting to become leaders. Here's something that I recently learned. It's giving people homework that you feel like could potentially become your leaders. And usually what I do is the homework is, hey, what book are you reading? I love reading books. I've gotten more golden nuggets from books than anything else. And I always say, hey, what book are you reading right now? Oh, I'm reading this. Okay. If I give you a book that has impacted my life and obviously sell it to them, will you read it? Yes. Okay, great. Here's this book. Can you come back to me in 3 days and give me whatever nuggets you've collected from the book? About 30 to 50% of them will come back. The rest won't come back or just forget about it or whatever. Those that do come back, then you gauge how much input they give you and how much they actually of their time invested. I've had guys that literally went through the entire book cover to cover in 2 or 3 days. And I'm like, all right, well, you are someone that I can work with. Now what I'm going to do is I'm going to put them on my calendar and then work with them on a weekly basis, 30, 45 minutes, and invest as much time as I can in them to developing into whatever role that I feel like they could be a fit for or something that they are interested in. But first I'm going to ask, what do they want to do, right? What is it that they are interested in? What are their goals? Finding out what their goals are and then trying with them build a plan to achieve there. And then the other thing is if they try to kind of point them in a direction that I want them to enter. But if I see that they're going to a completely different direction, present the opportunity in front of them. One thing that I learned from EOS is creating a vacuum, creating creating the vision, creating the track they want people to go into. And once you create the vision and you create kind of the destination, people will fill in that void, right? So it's like, as the leader, as the visionary, you have to create the path you want them to go in, but it's about figuring out who is the person that's worthy of your time and of you developing them, you know? And you want to make sure that you're spending 80% of your time with 20% of the top people.
It reminds me of an old sensei that would say, meet me at 4 a.m. before the sun rises.
Yep.
And 90% of kids would never get up.
Exactly.
But the one that does show up, you would help.
Yes.
It just reminds me of that method.
Exactly.
And okay, so before we wrap up today, I have a segment that I would like to invite you to, which is where it's an open debate. So what I look at is, what is the deepest, darkest thoughts of your audience? Why they're not buying from you? And I challenge you on them. So it's where it moves in more of a debate setting, where I think about the most darkest thought your audience has about you, and kind of put that across to you and say, what do you think about this? Would you be open to it?
Yeah, of course.
Okay, so if when I look at your products, I think about people would commonly just say, Bashar, you are just someone who's just selling a course.
Yeah.
You're just selling a product. Amazon, like, I could be doing anything. You're just plugging that, but how do I know it's even going to work?
Yeah. Three things that we focus on inside of our company. And the biggest one is that we don't just focus on the skill that people need to acquire to make money with it. Although our mission is to impact 1 million lives through empowering families with skills they can turn into income. But we focus on the mindset side of it. What we do is we sell them what they want, but give them what they need. And on the front end, it's skill building to help people make money. But in the back end, it's very mindset heavy, very mindset focused. Because what we've realized is when we were just skill heavy, we were losing like 80% of people in the first 30 days, right? Because people will show up, they'll look at the skill and they realize, man, this is way too complicated for me, right? But then when we start working on them, with them on their mindset and then removing limiting beliefs, we'd have people that been with us for 6 months that haven't even made a penny, but they say that we changed their lives because of how this removal of limiting beliefs have actually transformed other aspects of their lives. Although financially it hasn't really been impactful very much, but their relationships have been impactful. The way they show up with their kids have been impacted. You know, how they show up in life has been impacted. So I would say that's probably the biggest thing. The second biggest thing is we're long-term focused and not short-term transactional focused. And I know these sound very like soft skilly versus like, you know, it's this, it's that, it's the other. But we're here to stay. You know, we're building a company that's going to be here 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now. My personal mission in life is to create a lasting impact. And what that means is years, decades after I'm gone, I want to leave something behind that people, when they think about BJK University or when they think of Bashar, when they think of what we created, they would say that my life would not be the same had that thing that these guys created had not been there, right? So I'm always showing up every day thinking to myself, how can I create a lasting impact in these people's lives, right? Not how can I increase my LTV? Not how can I make more money? You know what I mean?
Well, I know what you mean, but if I challenge you on it some more, let's say one of your best students, Zach, was one of your early students. He made $30,000 profit whilst he was a truck driver, and then he left here. He was still able to travel and do BMXing.
Yep.
But that story is not the same for everyone.
Sure.
Not everyone can achieve those results.
Sure.
So if by talking about those stories and waving that flag and sharing those testimonials, how are all these other students going to get the same results at BK University?
Well, they're not, and I think that's the thing. I think that it's being honest about that. You know, not everyone is going to get the same results. Like, not everyone is Zach, you know, and that's okay. Unfortunately, there was a stat by Harvard that was created several years ago. It said 67% of people live paycheck to paycheck. And let's face it, majority of people are just fucking lazy, you know? And so personally for me, I say that to people's faces. It's like, look, not all of you guys are going to succeed. In fact, 2 out of 3 of you are actually not going to do shit, you know? And that's something that I'm willing to take. Because for me, it's like, you know what? I'm going to go to the masses, and then I'm going to work with the ones that rise to the top. And if you want to work, great, we'll work with you. If you don't, it is what it is. But we're going to do our part. You got to do your part, you know? I don't try to lead with work 30 minutes a day, 30 minutes a week, and you're going to make $1 million next week. And I actually say it's hard. I actually talk about how entrepreneurship is hard, how you got to work your face off, because that's what I do. And if I try to say something complete opposite, I'd be a hypocrite, you know? So that's the angle that I personally take.
I think the angle is actually more honest in Harvard University, which you use as an example, because Harvard University don't offer you any revenue, ask you for tens of thousands, ask you for years, and don't even offer you a job or revenue or money at the end of it. But people still want to go there because of the prestige of the brand. And I think your brand, as you grow your awareness, it will build that prestige even more than it already has in that BK University. I'm sure it will continue to grow. So I think you're like me challenging you on that is a great reply.
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you, Bashar. Really
of course, man. Appreciate you. Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right. Cool, man.
Thank you for listening to the Lead to Win podcast. If you've enjoyed this conversation, please let us know about the comments below. It was far more introspective, far more based upon internal work. So if it's something that you think that you can really benefit from, comment below on your biggest lessons and subscribe for the next video.